Good. Okay. Where did we leave off the last time?
Oh, a lot of things we had.
Well, we talked about the divorce that you went through. You talked about how you grew up, right? One single parent household.
Yep.
Right. And so I wanted to hear the story about how you overcame everything.
Oh, it was a lot of time, mental strength, therapy, breakdowns.
Right. You said you go and you see a psychologist, right?
Yes.
Time, it's important. That's critical. I was talking about that with a friend today. He's having some heartaches. We'll call it that, right? He's dealing with stuff in his relationship, and he wasn't asking me how to make it better, but he was wanting to know if I had any advice. And I told him, I said, unfortunately, when somebody believes what they want to believe, they're stuck on that. And there's no way that you can actually talk them out of it. It takes time. Yeah. So for you, what was eating away at your conscience or at your heart during that time? What was it?
It was really basically attacking my childhood trauma.
You attacking it?
Yes.
Facing it head on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that was the biggest struggle. I never really understood the problems that I have as an adult. It was because of my childhood trauma. Right. And I didn't let it go, and therefore it had came up in my adulthood, and that's where a lot of my problems arose.
Stemmed from. Yeah.
And it's just because I moved back to my house, the house that I grew up, and that's when like I felt like all my problems started to come back, and I understood. It was, I came back to a place where it's toxic, where I had good memories, but also bad ones. So when me moving back into the house, kind of like just opened up like Pandora's box.
Right. It was, right. I don't like to use the word triggered, but
it was a trigger. I would say it was a trigger.
Well, sure. I like to say it was a catalyst that allowed that. We could say it was like the crowbar that broke off the lock that you would use to seal away or repress all of these memories, even though they were affecting you. Now, did you have to move back in out of necessity, or was that something that?
It was just to save money because when I was renting since the age of 18, and I have a family house where it's ample space. I don't have to pay rent. It's just financially better.
It was more financially sound as you were trying to rebuild your life.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay. Well, actually, I moved in with my husband, and then shortly, like within a year, that's when things kind of like went turmoil.
So the two of you as a newlywed couple.
Yeah, well, we've been married for like 6 years.
Okay.
So we've been renting, but I'm like, honestly, I sat down and I thought about it. I was like, wait, we're making somebody else rich. Yeah. I'm giving my money to somebody else. Why can't it come back to my?
You're giving it to somebody else, but you weren't going to own what you had.
Yeah. So I'm like, just renting it. There's no gain from that. So I'm like, I can move back. We can move back to the family home. We don't have to pay rent. We just have to help, with the utilities and whatnot. Yeah. But it's going to be financially, we would save a lot of money.
Yeah, thousands of dollars every year.
Yeah. So I'm like, I was just thinking of longevity.
Now, when you said you had to help with utilities and stuff, so when you moved back in, it wasn't like it was just you guys.
Yeah, so it's like a big family house, almost like an apartment style. Right. Everybody has their separate living quarters, so I had the whole second floor to myself with my family. So it's not like we were all scrunched up in one area. Right. I had a whole house to myself. So it made sense. I still had my own place, but just with family in different areas.
You said maybe it was like about a year into moving back in where things started problems started to arise. Do you mind sharing some of the problems? Like in general, you don't have to be specific.
There was a problem that did it was there, it was there, but I somehow just let it eat at me. And you know, when you're an overthinker, you're like always thinking.
I know all about that, yeah.
So when you're overthinking, you think of all these things, and your mind doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You know.
You obsess over it.
Yeah. So you just.
I know what that's
constantly play in your head like all these things. So I'm like an overthinker, and I hate it because I'm just like, I'm driving myself nuts.
Right.
For no reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
go ahead, sorry.
Oh yeah, no. And then so I was like, okay. Sometimes when certain things happen, it doesn't go away, and I couldn't get past that stage.
Why? Did you figure out why, or you weren't allowing yourself to get past that stage?
I guess I wasn't allowing myself to get past that stage, and there's a lot of other different things that I wanted that he wasn't providing, or he wasn't stepping up. And therefore I was like, okay, this is not what I want, this is not how I want to live, and it's either you level up or you ship out. So he was so comfortable with whatever he had going on, and I'm just like, you know, ways have to change. You know, there's some there has to be some sacrifices and changes that need to be made, and he wasn't doing it. So I'm like, okay, like there's nothing more for me here. I'm basically doing it by myself. I might as well be single and happy alone than to be in a marriage that I'm not happy in, you know?
Right. I know some people might say, well, you know, you're talking a lot about what you want, or what about what he wants? Now, that's, to me, that's valid, right? Because you're a couple and you have to find a happy medium. However, that's the happy medium. It's like, it cannot, for me, I'm not telling you how it has to be, right? The way I look at things and the way I try to manage my relationship now, it's like, okay, I need to sacrifice enough to meet you in the middle without compromising. And I don't speak in terms of happy, because happiness it's a fleeting state. It's never permanent.
No.
I need to continue to do the things for myself that helps me to be fulfilled as a person, while making enough sacrifices so that I can help you, my partner, to be fulfilled. Right? And I will say that there's absolutely nothing wrong with pushing your partner to continue to evolve. And like you said, grow up. I really like that when you pointed up, like instead of saying like grow up, like, oh, you're such a child, it's like, no, grow up. It's like you're a grown individual, and I don't believe in you're fine just the way you are, because
there's always room for growth. Correct,
and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're still like a failure. It just means like no matter how successful, whatever level that is for you, you become, like you said, and I believe that there's always room for growth, right? Because unfortunately, like your ex-husband, and even including myself, I'm guilty of that. We become complacent, right? Even though there's some guys who are still thinking like, oh yeah, once I marry her, that's it. She's locked in. There's nothing, right? I don't need to do it. I'm done.
Stays like,
I don't need to take care of myself. I don't need to be that same guy. It's like, no, you do.
Yeah, you have to still, you know, nurture the relationship. It just doesn't stop just because I said I do.
Yeah, and you pointed it out in our first discussion. You said that you became a different person, you know, after being with him so many years, because you kept growing up. You kept evolving. So even if somebody grows down, that they're a different person than who they were from the beginning. And your partner, my partner, and me and you, when you decide to be with somebody again, we constantly have to observe our partners and recognize how they're evolving.
Right? What direction are they going?
Correct. No, and that's what I'm saying. We need to recognize that so that we can say, God, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm so proud to be with you. Or, you know, what's going on? Because you're going downward, you're spiraling downward. And then what today, and this is why I say I don't like to speak in terms of happiness, because oh, we're not happy like we used to be. It's like, yeah, because that's when we first met each other. And like,
yeah, and it's always the first stage, right? Cool. Like the first stages is always the best stage, right? Because you're just getting to know the person and, you know, all that.
Right.
That
and
giddy.
Correct. And they're like, oh, but you know, I'm like this. And it pisses people off. And you're like, that's not so bad, blah, blah, blah. But then when you're with the person for months on end, then you're like, no, that is irritating.
Yeah.
And everybody, it doesn't matter. Like, I've never had a partner where I'm like, nothing about them irritated me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter how beautiful I think they are. After a while, it's like, oh, why do you do that? And same with me, right? It didn't matter how much they were in love with me. After a while, like, I freaking hate it when you do that. Or, you know, you always do this and it really pisses me off. And so instead of understanding that they're actually trying to help us out, we only focus on the negative, especially because the delivery is usually negative. Like, what the F is wrong with you? And it's like, so I stopped saying that to everyone in general, my friends, my family. I stopped saying what's wrong with you or what's your problem. I'll ask what's bothering you.
Yeah.
Or, you know, what's stressing you out, what's frustrating you.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with a person unless they're diagnosed by it. Because, you know, you're talking to a psychologist, and I think that's healthy. Some people would be embarrassed. It's like, no. Some people need all the help we can get.
Yeah.
And a therapist is a neutral person that will hear you out.
And it's unbiased, you know?
Correct. And they'll actually tell you, like, no, you're wrong in that one.
Yeah, and not like, you know, friends are like, oh yeah.
No, it's just their problem, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. At them.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are messed up, not you.
Now,
you're beautiful.
Right, and we can't fault friends for saying that because they love you and they care about you. However, they're not looking at it from a realistic point of view.
Because there's always two sides.
Correct. Now, even if one side is more right than the other, there's still two sides.
Yeah.
And like I was telling my friends just last night, actually, because they were saying, you know, everybody's so blah, 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 blah. And I said, what do you mean everybody? And they're like, well, everybody's telling me, you know, that this. And I was like, well, if it was just one person, then maybe you could dispute that. But if everybody is saying the same thing,
then you can say
it might be you and not everybody else.
Yeah.
And the only reason I was able to say that is because I had to accept that one day. I looked in the mirror and I was like, it's you and not everybody else. There really is.
Everybody says that it has to be some truth.
Yeah. Even people who don't even talk to each other, like are not even mutual friends, you know, make the same complaint. It's like, it's me.
Yeah.
And it's the last place we want to look because nobody wants to believe, right? It's like, well, you hurt me. And it's like, okay, well, what did somebody do? And it's like, today another friend was saying, oh, my friend is dropping hints that, you know, I could have done this, but I didn't, so now I'm hurt. And then my friend was saying, but you know, that person didn't do this for me. And I said, aha, tit for tat. And you're like, it's not tit for tat. I said, yes, it is. You just said you didn't do that because they didn't do this how many years ago, right? And I said, if you're going to be a friend, I said, even in a relationship, one of the hardest things to do is to say I'm sorry, even though you believe 100% that you're right.
Yeah.
Correct. And the weird irony is when you go to somebody with your head down, with all humility, not like, you know, humiliation, but I'm being humble right now and I'm saying I'm sorry that
your tongue
I'm sorry that this whole thing happened, period, and I'm sorry for what I did. And you cannot expect the other person to say, you know, well, I'm wrong too. You have to go to them with that. But what it usually does is it makes the person like, oh, I was ready for a fight, but you came here and said you win.
So
you're right.
It changes the whole mood.
The whole mood, and they're like, you're right. I shouldn't have said this when you said that, right?
But when it's all about approach.
Correct. But when you're fighting to be right, no one's ever going to win. Right?
Yeah, especially that tomorrow.
No, it's not just tomorrow. I see
it's about it like, oh no, you know. Like,
correct. And so there's this tendency to be like, well, F you. And then they call their friend, you know, so-and-so, and their friend's like, yeah, you're right. And they're like, yeah, I am. And it's like, you know, it feels good to have somebody say you're right and whatever.
Yeah, of course.
However,
it's supposed to be wrong, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't solve the problem, and it's not really looking at it realistic. It should be, and it's the hardest thing to do, and it actually causes problems when I try to, not fix things, but when I try to help the situation. Yeah. Because the first thing I do is like ask people, well, what are you accountable for? And you're like, well, what are you trying to say? Yeah. And I'm like saying, well, even if it's just being there, that somebody, you know, splash threw a glass of wine in your face, you made the choice to be there. So it's like, you can be mad at them all you want because, why did they splash you But now you know, moving forward, if you know that person's going to be there, maybe you shouldn't go.
Like just,
and it's not your fault. It's saying, how do you want to protect yourself from these things happening?
Yeah.
Right. And you know, it's so difficult for people to understand that. And I'm saying this because I'm thinking about how your ex might have been thinking when you're asking him, or when you're letting him know that you need more from him. Because then the first thing people think is, am I not enough for you? And it's like, that's not what I'm saying. It's like, I need more from you because I'm not who I used to be when we first met. Neither are you, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to be with you. However, I'm not fulfilled because this is lacking. And how can you help me fill that void?
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry, I took away from you so much. And so you said after a year, that's when it really started. Things started
it was like a bunch of stuff, you know.
And I'm sure it wasn't just your childhood trauma. I'm sure it was genuine relationship issues.
And just growing, really.
Right.
And, you know, I pushed him to do better and just be better, you know, and he just
resented it, right? He's like,
he's like, oh yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I got somebody, a really good woman who's gonna take care of all of this and all of that. Like, oh, I got a superwoman, and
that's only true if you make the agreement.
Yeah,
but you actually say,
because I'm raised to like take care, to be like kind of semi-nurturing of the home, you know. And so I take care of the kids. I take care of the house. I go to work. At one point, I was going to work and school and doing all of that. So it was a lot, and half of the time I just felt really like lonely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you get off at this time. Like, why aren't you helping?
Yeah.
You know.
I have a cousin like that who he literally said, like, when I get married, my wife better clean the house and cook for me. It's like, okay, that's fair. But does that mean that you're going to go out and work hard to make sure you provide everything that she needs?
Yeah.
And you have to make that agreement. Like, honey, you know, when we get married, are you okay with this setup for the team? Because you're a team for the rest of your life. Like, that's how I see, if I'm going to marry somebody, I'm going to marry a teammate. I'm like, well, don't you want to marry somebody you love? It's like, well, yeah. But I'm also thinking, like, I got to spend the rest of my life with this person. Are they good for me?
Yeah.
Am I good for them? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to benefit their life? Because people think too much in terms of me. So in my relationship, I don't think about what's happening with me until I get frustrated, and then I communicate, and then there's nothing there, and I say, well, this is what I need. That's the only time I say that. Other than that, I'm always thinking, what can I do to make her feel fulfilled?
So you're like a giver?
No, I'm both.
Okay.
I don't have expectations. It's in a relationship. Your partner is obligated to do their part, as you are obligated to do your part.
Yeah.
And so I will give because I know that's what I have to do. It's not about taking.
Yeah.
I need to give. And my partner has to be aware enough to say, this is what I need to give. Yeah. So it's not a gift. For me, it's not I'm a giver or I'm a taker. It's I'm going to give because that's my obligation. Because I told you I want to be committed to you. So that's what I have to do. Now, if you don't give, then I'm going to get depleted. Because me giving is only half the reservoir.
Yeah, you're taking and not.
And that's not taking, it's receiving what you give. Because if I try to take it, then it's not real. Right? Yeah. Then, because I was in a relationship where my partner, she just wasn't into it anymore, but she was putting up a front and just doing what she needed to do. And so that's when I started taking, so to speak, right? Because she wasn't really giving, it was just there. Yeah. And so I told her, you know, at the end of it, it's like, I forgive you. I said, I'm not saying that like you're the one who messed up. Like, I messed up first. Yeah. But that didn't make it okay for you to mess up.
Yeah.
And I forgive you. However, I wish you would have told me a lot sooner, because I could have dealt with the disappointment, and then I could have started to move on a lot sooner, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's not like I hold it over her head. It's something that I remind myself, so I know that I wasn't a complete scumbag, right? I know that I tried.
Yeah.
I know that it was too late. Okay, I'm not going to say.
Sometimes it's too late.
Correct, and I'm not going to look at her.
Emails.
Right.
When they move, they move.
Well, by the time females move, they're gone.
Yeah.
Right? Men, it's like we've had trouble.
You move when we're gone.
Well, we've had trouble committing in relationships for it's like maybe a generation and a half now, and I'll blame men for forgetting who they're supposed to be. And you know, people talk about, oh, why does the woman have to take care of the family? Why can't she go out and work? It's like nobody's saying that she can't, but realistically speaking, it's like working and taking care of a family, that's freaking hard.
Yeah.
So that's why it takes two, right? And then they put down women who want to stay home and take care of the family in certain sections, right? We'll say, like, certain feminists will say, girl, oh, that's all you are as a housewife? It's like, what do you mean that's all she is? The responsibility of the lives of the children and the stability of the home is in her hands.
Yeah.
And why are you putting that down? And you're saying she's not ambitious? It's like, what if her lifelong ambition was to raise a family?
Yeah.
You know, and her husband's earning enough so that their lives are comfortable.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, like if a dude wants to stay home and the chick's gonna work, whatever the couple agrees on. And
yeah,
I don't,
their arrangement.
And I don't think it's appropriate when people who have nothing to do with anybody's life comes in and says, why are you doing that? You should be doing this and this. It's like, you don't know what these, you don't know what their relationship is like or who they are. And so you were having to deal with an individual who was like myself before, that was taking the relationship for granted. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Right? He was taking it for granted. He got comfortable, he got complacent, and he was like, why are you complaining? We're married, this is how it is. And it's like, nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're going to fast forward to when you were on your own. What was the scariest thing? Like, what was the thing that just kind of like made you turn pale? Like, oh my God.
So I'm used to being with somebody. So me being alone scares the bejesus out of me.
Now, you said earlier that you already felt lonely in a relationship. However,
like I've always been feeling lonely, but when you're kind of used to having someone around all the time,
even though you were lonely, he was there.
He was there. It was like, it was still there, but not, so to say, all the way mentally there.
Right.
But just having someone there.
Yeah.
And so
there was no connection, but he was there.
Yeah. I mean, there's some kind of connection, but it wasn't like fully engaging,
Correct.
So it was.
So that was
it was
fear.
Scary, and even up to now, like I freak out, like I'm still by myself. I'm like, wow, But for me, I need to do this because I need to face this fear of being alone.
Yeah. So okay, I'm glad you said that because it reminded me. You had to attack your childhood, as you put it, and I like the way you put that.
I attacked everything all at once, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. And was this something that your therapist advised?
No, it's just something that I wanted to do personally.
Because that's really. Go ahead.
Yeah, only because I kind of like sabotage a good relationship. Because I wasn't able to fully heal.
Right. And
so.
No, and you're absolutely right. Because when psychologists, and this is based on all the research that I've done, the most effective way to help somebody get through something is to expose them to it slowly but surely to the point to where they can tolerate it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't help them forget. You help them be strong enough to deal with it in a way where it doesn't negatively impact their lives anymore. For me, that's what I understood. So when you're talking about how you knew you had to be alone, not like, oh, I'm going to suffer and be lonely. It's like, because some people might think like that. Like, why are you being hard on yourself? It's no. I know that I have an issue with being alone, so I need to be alone so I can get used to it. Yeah. Then, and a really good friend of mine, we both felt the same way. It's like, if I know that I can be perfectly stable in life, not say fulfilled, but be perfectly stable and content by myself, now I know I'm ready to bring in a partner.
Yeah.
Emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah. And so that's why when you said that, like, I need to attack my childhood, it's like, I love hearing that because some people are like, oh, I build a shell or I build an armor around me. Mm-hmm. And I tell my friends who say that, like, I don't do that. I shed all the armor and I strengthen me on the inside so I don't need it.
Yeah,
but the cool thing is once you strengthen the inside and you're so strong, it's like having armor, but on the inside.
Yeah, you know your worth.
Yeah, correct. Because when you put up armor, you're telling yourself something that is not. You're lying to yourself, basically. Yeah. That's what armor is, right?
You're shielding.
It's a shield. It's a veil. It's not. I'm trying to protect myself. It's like a real fight.
Yeah.
You want to protect yourself, but you don't want to fight. How are you going to protect yourself? oh, I'm just going to run away. Like, no, I'm not going to run away. It's like,
I'm
that's
just
the only other thing you
emotionally
can
check out.
Yeah, you're either going to sit there and let yourself get beat up and hope it ends soon, run away, or fight. And it doesn't have to be physical. It's like, I'm going to deal with the fact that I'm troubled.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to break down and go cry or whatever, like, oh, this person or whatever it is. I might cry, but the whole time I'm thinking about how is it that I can get through this? Because that's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Right? Like when something is heavy and it's stressful, I'm kind of proud of myself because I don't snap at people around me anymore. I used to do that all the time, right? Just I subconsciously take it out on people around me. But now I try to be very conscious of that and think, okay, Julius, how are you going to accept that this has happened? Do something to help minimize anything worse, and then start to rebuild and start to make things better in any way that you can.
Yeah.
I never think like fix it because I can't control how other people think and feel.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you're getting comfortable with being alone. Where are you at now with that? Still struggling?
Yeah, so I chose to be like celibate, so.
Same here, girl. Because that's one of the things that got me in trouble in the first place.
Yeah, so in those steps to addressing me being alone is addressing that I could be like celibate.
Yeah.
And that's like not in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
At all.
It's, what was it? How long have you been practicing that?
I just recently, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it was just.
It's gonna be an ordeal, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I feel like the more I'm doing this, more people are like, hey.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no.
So with what you're describing, I look at those things in terms of religion, right? So that's just for me.
Okay,
just for me, right? It's like, okay, God, and I talk to God a lot, right? And I talk to him like he's a Cusco dad. Like I can be real with him, right? Like, what the fuck is going on, right? And he was be like, boy, stop looking at people around you. Look in the mirror and ask yourself what's going on. So I said, okay, all right, I destroyed my family. And this is how I did it. And so when it was final and everybody knew we're just not together anymore, they're like, let's go out and party and you get you effed up and you need to hook up. And I was like, bro, that's the last thing I want to do. And they're like, why? Because that's what screwed my life up. Or that's how I allowed myself to screw my life up. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to go the exact opposite route. I'm going to stay home and I'm not going to mess around. So I did it for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good on you, because I did the total opposite.
Well, and that's fine. We all have to learn the hard way, right?
Yeah.
So I did it because I knew, just stop, bro. Put that away. You know what I mean? Put it away for now. Yeah. And, to the point where he just, was hibernating, he was asleep. I couldn't, didn't want to. So, and then when like I said, then I came to okay, I'm actually good. I'm good. I'm not craving.
That's what I'm trying to get myself out of, is that craving.
Right, and that's the yearning. I use the word yearning for it because you're yearning for the touch. You're yearning for, and the problem with sex and climaxing is it's a drug, right? When you take a drug,
and I'm addicted to that shit. So I'm like,
nobody can blame you, right? So anytime you take a drug or anytime you, we'll use cocaine for example, right? When people take that, it's I can't remember the name of the chemical in the brain, and it's not endorphins, it's something else. But basically what it's doing is it's artificially causing your brain to say, good job, right? So it's that euphoria that you feel.
The happy chemicals.
Well, it's not happy, it's a good job chemical, because you get the exact same feeling when your room is messy and you clean it and you're like, it's the exact same. This is from a scientific neurological explanation. When you smoke meth or when you snort coke, it's the same feeling you get when you accomplish a task and you're like, hell yeah, good job. So you're telling yourself without having to actually do anything, which is why you see people waste their lives away. And so I don't blame the drug, because the drug, if you just put it down, it cannot do anything. People are like, oh, you don't think it's bad? It's like, no, I think it's volatile as hell, right? But then they also use amphetamines and other drugs that help people with actual problems that actually need it, right? Unfortunately, they put it in Ritalin and Adderall, right? There's amphetamines in there. And so when sex has that same power over an individual, that euphoria, it's like, and then you want it again, and then you think that that's what happiness in a relationship, or at least I started to think that's what happiness in a relationship, and when we're arguing, like, I don't want to discuss it, let's just go to the bed, because everything's always good after that. But then there's always this uncomfortable, like, the problem is still there.
And there's so many, we just sweep it under the rug.
Correct, and we're going to pretend that it went away, but then it just keeps manifesting again and again.
Yeah, the next day you're just like, oh, remember what you said yesterday?
Yeah, part of my language, we cannot fuck our problems away.
Yeah.
We end up screwing ourselves over.
I mean, it's good after, but...
I'm not going to deny that there's no pleasure. There is. However, it's not addressing what the real problem is.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
And so, I can remember a situation where I had a better head on my shoulders, and there was a big problem in a relationship, and we were talking it out, and things were getting good, and we were like, lovey-dovey again.
Yeah.
I intentionally didn't try to sleep with her, didn't try to be intimate with her, because I didn't want to taint that accomplishment that we had with sex. Like, after being celibate for 3 years, I totally now look at sex as something that's completely dangerous, and I have to be careful with it. Because I know that I can go out and have fun with it, but is that what I want for the rest of my life? And a lot of it has to do with, I saw my father, I was there when my father died, but technically he died alone, right? I got a call at work, and so I rushed down, and nobody else was there because they couldn't make it in time. Like, it was just minutes. And I said, I never want that to happen to me. My father and I were estranged for we didn't talk for almost 30 years, right? And so I was fortunate that I started to start to connect with him again before he passed away. But I saw that and I was like, man, I don't want that to happen to me, so I need to learn from my father in that if I continue down the path that I'm going, that's going to be me. And really, when I leave this world, I would love to have my family around me.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So everything I do in life now is to make sure that I don't die alone. And so I see sex as one of those volatile things that could ruin everything that I'm working to rebuild in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and the weird thing is, it's not like my partners weren't satisfying me before.
Yeah.
I was just going out and getting it because I could.
Yeah.
Not because I should.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, I tell my partner, like, I want chicks to be jealous because I won't cheat on you. You know what I mean? Not just because I'm cheating on you with them, but they don't get to have me. Right? That's going to cause its own problems. But I feel good when I look in the mirror and say, it doesn't matter how attractive anybody is. I don't have the inclination or the want or the desire to cheat on my partner.
Yeah.
And that, I'm just like, oh my God. Because it used to be such a mental thing for me.
Yeah.
So now you're going through that 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you find like you're going crazy sometimes? Or?
Somebody told me, man, you're so moody, you're so mean, you're so you need love.
Short temper.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you're so I can't deal with you. I'm just like.
And who else acts like that? It's like a drug addict going through withdrawal.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just like.
It's just not as bad, right? Not like shaking.
No, just like, oh my God. And there's sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna do a booty call.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, don't do it.
Yeah, just talking about self-value. And when you do that, you're letting the guy know, like, yeah, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And it's really a form of just self-disrespect, even for the guy.
Yeah.
To do that. And this is where I came up with a false alpha. I used to be a false alpha because I thought that it was like however many notches I can get on my belt, whatever, that's the alpha. It's like, no, it's not. The alpha is the guy who can get it. It's like, thanks. That's the alpha. He has self-control because he respects himself. And so what I was telling my daughters is, if you want the best guy out there, but yet you give yourself to everybody else, he's not going to want you. Because to him, your value is down here. He's going to want the girl who, it's a challenge to get to her, right? Because the reason why
she's not accessible to everybody.
That's what I mean. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign. It's like why? It's like because that's when she values herself. She doesn't think that she's better than anyone. She's just saying, I don't want to share myself with just anybody.
Yeah.
Right. But men have to treat themselves like that too. You know what I mean? Like guys that hit chicks up for booty calls. I don't judge them. However, I say, you're not who you think you are when you do that. That's what I'll say to them. So you guys think that you're the man, you're not. Because, you know, if you're doing that to yourself and that girl's allowing you to do that to her, do you think you're the only one doing that to her? And then you know you're not, you know she's not the only one that you're calling. It's like, it's so like twisted. You want to talk about toxic? To me, that's toxic.
Yeah, but then it could be like some of them are scared of commitment.
To me, that's an excuse. If you're scared of commitment, but you're willing to perform the act that requires commitment, you know what I mean? Because when we were growing up, like me in the 80s, it was like you had to go out with the girl before you could even like make out with her or get to first base, second base, whatever. If you weren't going out, none of that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's like, hey, here's a picture of my penis on your Instagram. Do you want to meet us somewhere?
You go swipe on Tinder.
Yeah.
You know, a swipe on, oh my gosh.
So I tried Tinder when I finally said, like, okay, I want to try dating.
Yeah.
And I only thought of Tinder as a fuck app. Right?
Yeah, I figured out. That's what I thought.
But it's not.
It's more like a hookup app. I'm just like, man, it's trash.
Yeah, it is.
It's trash.
It is. Now,
I hate that app.
I'm not judging people on it. I'm saying if you want to fuck Tinder, but don't lie to people and say, no, I'm just not going to date. It's like, who's dating you or your vagina?
Yeah. I think.
More power to you or whatever, but that's not for me. Right? I realize it's not for me.
Yeah. It's trash.
So people are saying that you're getting snappy and whatever. So you're realizing these are the side effects of your commitment to celibate people that you're never going to. It's like, no, for now, I need to.
For now, just
it's close for business because that affects this dramatically.
Yeah, and then you know when you're like having sex, it makes things a lot confusing. And when things are not really clear and there's sex involved, things get very confusing. So I'm in this stage where confused.
Yeah.
So I want to unconfuse myself and just be like, okay, everything just has to stop. Everything just needs to be quiet. And just, if you're going to be there for me, you're going to be there for me as a friend.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing more.
Yeah.
I can't give you any more.
Yeah.
If you thought that you can get this, that's changed.
Right. And see, going celibate, what it did for me too was it filtered out all the fake people.
Yeah, and that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, well, anybody who was talking, I'm like, okay, celibate, if you don't want to be friends, or I can only give you friendship, nothing more, nothing less, and that's okay. If you don't want to talk to me anymore, that's fine, but I'm in a different path and I need to do it.
And that what you just said totally destroys the whole friends with benefits premise.
Yeah.
I stopped doing that a long time ago. It's like, you call it friends with benefits, I call it pure drama.
I mean, it is what it is because it's confusing. I was just in a situation and it got confusing.
I'll be completely candid.
Yeah, and I want to get
men can do it and walk away and have no qualms, whereas women it's different.
Yeah.
We're built different psychologically.
And I thought I could do it, and it just wasn't for me. And it kind of like
it's not just not
it
for you.
hurt me.
It's not for a lot, like the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
It hurt you too.
Yeah, it hurt me to have that kind of situation or arrangement.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm so much worth a lot more.
Correct.
To be treated like, or to even be in this situation, you know?
Right.
Like, I have a lot to offer.
Right. And I wouldn't feel bad if, like, dudes stop calling you because you're not, giving them what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Now you realize, like, okay, this person wasn't worth my precious time and energy, right? I was telling a friend, you're putting so much time and energy into things that are causing you so much stress.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, well, this person is trying to mess with me in this way, so I'm doing this. And it's like, why are you even doing that? That time and energy could be towards your family, towards your friends, towards something that actually brings goodness and value into your life.
Yeah, some growth.
Yeah. And then you realize who those people are, and you're like, oh, I can't believe I used to place this amount of respect on you. But really, you're whether it's a guy or a girl, it's like you're a leech, right? And you don't even know it. And so now I don't judge people to their face, but I look at the way people conduct themselves, and I say, man, that's like piss poor, attitude towards representing yourself. Because then the guy in that situation would be like, whatever, I'm gonna drop you because you're not giving me what I want. I'm the man, I'm gonna go here. It's like, no, you're just showing.
He's never really like been the person to be like, hey, let's link up. He was never, but he's very respectful, but things got a little confusing, and I'm just like, okay, let's sit down and have a talk. And so we did, and I shot it straight to him, and I said, I can't continue, because I need more, and I'm not getting it from you, and I don't know what you want, what's your mindset. So therefore, if you can't communicate with me and what you want and how I feel, then you should continue anymore.
And this is why you're saying you're afraid of commitment?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think most men are afraid of commitment.
I'll take it even further and say that's an excuse that a man can make. I'll say men today don't know how to commit.
And it could be done.
I didn't know how to commit before.
And I get it. Like some are, not from here.
Doesn't matter. It's a universal thing, commitment.
Yeah, true.
How do you commit? Sacrifice each other.
Yeah.
That's commitment, sacrifice. Oh, I want to do this. Do you want to do that, or do you want a relationship?
Yeah.
Right?
But we can't tell a guy. We can't force somebody.
No, but you can give them an ultimatum.
Yeah, so that's what I did.
And then if somebody says, oh, you're trying to force me, it's saying, no, I'm giving you a choice. And I'm letting you know what consequences are for this choice, and letting you know what positive things are to being this choice.
Yeah.
And then for men, because then men think like, oh, she said this, it's like, no. Consider what she's asking you, and then you consider what you need, and then you ask her, saying, oh, okay, I do want to commit. You're right, and I will make this sacrifice. However, if I'm going to make this sacrifice for my sanity and for my emotional stability, are you willing to make this sacrifice? Because then it's like, it's not tit for tat. Now you're actually engaging as a couple.
Yeah,
right?
Communicating.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, okay, let's sit down. I need to talk with you.
Communicating, but it's like, what are you communicating? You're communicating how are you looking at the rest of your life and how you might want to spend it with this person. Right? So it's not just like messaging someone. Right? You're like,
yeah, because text. Texting and talking is two different things. So I'm like, we need to have a sit down and we need to talk, because for me, I wasn't going to do it over text, like.
It's too easy to lie.
Yeah, and I want to see what he says and what his facial is, and just
tone of his
how
voice.
because over text there's no tone over text, and I can take it totally different.
So that's how I knew that Tinder was full shit. Was because the people that I would meet on her, right? I'd be like, hey, let me call you. And they're like, just message. And I'm like,
why?
Well, I'm 42, right? I come from the era where we didn't have a phone in my house until I was like 8 years old, right? And then, pagers were invented, and then cell phones were invented, right?
Yeah.
But most of the millennials now, like all they knew growing up is, they had these devices, and so they would prefer doing this, and I had to scratch my head, like, how come people want to talk to each other? It's like, they're afraid to engage, and it's like, how can I even consider you?
This is how we used to.
You had no choice.
We took the long cord overnight, and
we didn't even have caller ID at some point. You just had like hope, whatever. And so I asked myself, like, do I want to even consider being in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to talk to me on the phone? No. Somebody who's afraid to sit and speak with me in person? No. Because then it's like, how many other dudes are you messaging, right?
Yeah.
Because it's too easy, because if we're talking and we're like, oh, hang on, or oh, whatever.
Yeah, we're like, oh, no, I can text like 5 different guys
at the same time. And the same thing with you is I can text 5 different girls at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. Again, that's how I started to filter out who I would even consider to date. I remember I didn't go on a date. There was this girl that we were kind of flirting back and forth.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, meet me out. I'm like, okay, I met her out. And she was like, the place we were at was closing. And I was like, we want to go hang out at my place. She was like, yeah, shoot. She immediately started throwing herself, at my place. And I had every reason to take advantage of it, because I had been celibate. And I was like, okay, now I'm ready to go out. But it was the way she was doing it. I was like, man, like a dude.
Yeah.
Just kind of like unzip and like, hey, what do you think? I was like, no, it's cool.
You weren't even like, she was aggressive.
She was extremely aggressive. Like, for real, and I was telling her, like, it's cool, like, we don't need to do this, and I don't think you want to do it, and I don't want to do it. She's like, but I want you. And I'm like, I know you do. However, I don't want to do it. And I was trying not to make her feel bad. Right? And I didn't say it's not you, it's me. I'm saying, I don't want to do that. Like, I much prefer to hang out with you. But she seemed like a thirsty dude to me. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on. Right? And to her credit, she didn't get mad. She was cordial, and we spoke, and then whatever, right? But she never checked me out again.
Oh, she said, screw you.
Yeah, and that's fine. Right? And another one, I went on a date with this girl, and like, she was like, well, I'm at work, but I can meet someone close by because I have to go back, or whatever. And I said, shoot, let's go to the beach. Whatever, we met at the beach. It was nice. Right? But I was surprised because I was sitting in the sand, I dug a hole and made like a makeshift seat. She came and she sat right on my lap. I was like, oh, interesting.
Okay,
like,
so we're doing
literally, this is our second conversation. And then I'm like, okay, and I was feeling frisky, right? So I'm like, okay. And she was like, okay, well, let's just went in the water. And then when we were leaving, all of a sudden it was like abrupt. She was like, hey, I'm gonna go, blah, blah, blah. And then I tried to hit her again, and she's kind of like, meh. And I was like, oh, she's butthurt that I didn't try to have sex with her. Well, I talked to a bunch of my other friends. They were like, what's going on here? And then they were both men and women. They were all like, she was upset because she didn't try to make a move on her. I was like, it's so opposite nowadays.
Yeah, dating in this generation is so confusing.
Well, it's grimy because they think that sex should always be a part of it.
Yeah, it's like the first initial, like, why can't we just get to know each other, court each other, and just hang out and chill.
Courting, I love
you like, come on, and I use that often, court or date me,
Well, it's court when you're dating somebody.
Yeah.
You then from there you can move to the courting process, right?
Yeah.
How's the conversation? Was it worth seeing them again? Yeah, it was. And then the courting process helps you to feel out like, what is this person's temper like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So just basically learning each other.
Yeah.
Before moving to this next step, because the next step is a whole other level.
Right. And I'm not being naive and saying that, especially when you're in your like 20s, like you're gonna have some further sex.
Yeah.
But simply because you're young doesn't make it okay to just freaking like see how many you can stack on the list, right?
Yeah.
It's again, I say this to men, I say it to women because I think of my daughters, right? It's like value yourself more. Right? If you're not going to commit, at least restrict yourself to just one partner that you're okay with, being intimate with. But for dudes, it's like, stop going out there and trying to add more notches to your belt because
there's a guy thing.
Well, it is a guy thing, and there are. So okay, I look at it this way. I'm actually kind of embarrassed at my former life. Like I don't look at it with pride per se. I use it to remind myself, like, have confidence in yourself because you know that you have the ability, to be an attractive individual for partners. But I don't look at it like, well, if she doesn't, if she's not good, you can just ditch her and you can get anybody else. It's like, no, and guys just say, oh, dude, but she's crazy. It's like, they're all crazy. Just like all dudes are assholes. Right? So you gotta pick the crazy one you want, because she's gonna pick the asshole that she wants, and you guys gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because do you love them? Because if you say you love them, love doesn't manifest until there's hard times. All that good stuff, that's not love. That's the fact that you guys are attracted to each other, right? And you get along. It's when the hard times kick in that you're like, oh my God, what's wrong? How can I help you? Right? Because I've had friends who are like, oh man, I had to ditch that, she was having problems with this and that. And I just couldn't get one of that.
So easily, so fast to ditch.
To drop, yeah. And say, well, then you didn't really love them. Like, yeah, I did. So, no, you didn't. Now, it's okay. You didn't want to be a part of that drama. You're not married. So you can walk away. Right? That's the luxury of being just dating someone, just courting someone. You're like, nope, don't want that. But you can't tell somebody you love them and then be like, oh, you're too difficult.
Yeah, just because it's too difficult. Oh, yeah, I'm going.
You have to attack the difficulties like you attack your childhood trauma. And then if the difficulties, if it's clear that they're not going to be worked out, then you can put the ultimatum and say, look, I've been trying, nothing's happening. You need to understand that I am ready to walk away if you're not going to make the conscious decision to try and improve yourself so it can improve the situation overall.
Relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Facts.
Yeah. I don't use the word fault in my vocabulary. Right? It's what am I accountable for? Because then once I figure that out, then I can start to say, well, this person's accountable for that. And I will never point fingers and say that. I just make sure so that when they come at me, I'll say, no, that's not. I'm responsible for that. But that other stuff, you gotta figure that out. And if you want my opinion, I'll tell you what I think you're accountable for.
Yeah.
I don't like to say, well, it's this person's fault. Right?
Yeah. Everybody has flaws, you know?
Everyone. And the flaws are constantly shifting. Once you fix one, another one manifests. Right? It's very difficult.
Never-ending story.
Now, I saw your Jeep. It's a freaking sexy Jeep, and I remember seeing it on the lot. You just got back recently, right?
No, that's actually been at the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shoot, so maybe it wasn't the one I saw because they.
No, that's 17.
Oh, okay, it's a different one. Why that vehicle?
Well, I normally drive a truck, so I prefer the truck, but it's smaller.
Why do you like the truck?
Because I'm an outdoor person, so I want to carry stuff. And then, whenever I go to the beach, I just put stuff in the back of the truck. You don't have to worry about it going in the car.
Right.
And you can carry stuff instead of me asking people, hey, can I borrow a truck so I can carry stuff?
Right.
I got a truck.
It's the most useful vehicle on Guam.
On Guam, yeah.
Especially because the roads, the condition of the roads.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a 6-seater, so I'm just like, okay, everybody can fit, all my family can fit, so we're not scrunched up.
Right.
So it's, yeah.
Okay. What kind of stuff do you like to do outdoors?
Going to the beach, hiking, going walking, running, anything outdoor. I like playing sports. I'm kind of like a tomboy, but dressed like a girl.
Yeah. My sister was a tomboy. One of my sisters was a tomboy, right?
Yeah, so I grew up like that. I grew up with all boys in my house.
I grew up with all girls.
Oh, okay, so we're totally opposite.
Opposite but similar.
Yeah.
Right? Because you grew up with all boys, we can communicate, but always, and I don't know if we discussed this in the first conversation, but I've always felt comfortable walking into a room full of women or speaking to women.
And I'm like that with guys. I'm more comfortable with guys than I am with girls.
Now, with that said, I had to get comfortable talking to girls that I thought were cute, that I liked. You know what I mean? Like I could talk to a girl just to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's really what started to get me in trouble. I'm not blaming my mom or my sisters. I'm saying I didn't realize that ability to be comfortable with women made them more comfortable with me, which made them more attractive to me, which made me more attractive to them, vice versa. But the downside was, after high school, because in high school I played sports, so I was around guys, right? And I knew how. And after that, for some reason, I stopped being comfortable around a group of men because I had forgotten, right? And that wasn't good for me as a man. Like men should always feel comfortable around other men. And be able to talk to them and stand up for themselves. Not in a way like I'm gonna fight you, but with like that self-value, dignity. So that's why I use the word dignity, because dignity means you're humble enough to understand that you're flawed and what those flaws are. However, you also value yourself enough to where you won't allow people to put you down, to kick you down, or to make false accusations about you.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, those things that you said about me are true, those are not. And that's why you see people believe me, because I will accept certain things that most people won't. And then I'll say, but those things are not. Like, I've done that, not that.
Yeah. You're like, but sometimes it's just like, you don't even know whether you need to validate or even acknowledge some of the things that people say.
I don't. If only if it comes to me directly.
Yeah.
I don't go out of my way to engage with rumors or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then you give them that power and you play into them. And there's no like, well, I want to set them straight. It's like, but they said it. You know what I mean? You really know they didn't say it to your face, or you set them straight. It's like that's not going to work. It's going to make you more vulnerable, right, to more attacks.
Yeah.
Because all they're going to say is, you know what that person did. They found out that this was said, and then they came to me and they're acting crazy, even though you weren't. Maybe you were upset, frustrated, so you approached them aggressively. They can take that and twist it into something else.
And say something else. Oh yeah.
So I agree with you. It's like do not engage with those things if you don't have to. Like
if
it gets in your
learn
face,
how to pick your battles.
correct. If it gets in your face, then you have to deal with it. But if it's not in your face, people come up to me like, oh, so this for real? Yeah, but then I'm mad. I'm like, why should I be? Like, that person doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
I don't wish them any harm. However, their word, like if you know, whoever's telling me, like if you were saying that, then it would hurt me because I thought that we had a relationship where I can confide in you and trust you.
Yeah.
Right now you're taking that, you're breaking that trust, and you're using my vulnerability against me. But this person doesn't even know me, and they're repeating rumors that they heard about me. So I don't care.
Yeah, they can say whatever they're going to say.
And it's not that I don't care what people say about me. I care about people that I love. I care about and trust. I care about what they say about me because I do my best to conduct myself in a way when I engage with them. Right?
Yeah.
I hold their confidence in me and their trust in me sacred. Like we may mess around, we may frustrate each other, piss each other off, but I would never take their secrets and use it to hurt them.
Oh, yeah.
Just like in a relationship, when you break up with somebody and all of a sudden your ex is like, well, this person is this, how could you do that? Just because we broke up, you can't fight that.
Throw me under the bus.
Like, do you know what I know about you? But I'm not going to say it because that just makes me just like you, you know? And so when people say things, it's like, I don't value their word.
Yeah.
I'll still give them the opportunity to apologize to me and so that we can be cordial. But I don't place any value on that.
Yeah.
This is what they say. Yeah. Especially when I know that it's not true.
Oh, facts.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, oh, well, okay, I know what I know, and whatever you know, this is whatever you know, but and everybody who really knows you, and if you're true and you're really genuine, people, the true people you hang out with or whatever your circle will know what's true and what's false.
They will pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I've had it where people told me, like, so-and-so is saying this about you. And I told them, that's not true. Like, yeah, he used to do this, but he's definitely not doing that. And I'm like, wow, thank you. And some of these people weren't even my close friends. It's just that I always conducted myself with them in a respectful way, right? And humble, and, you know. And so they were like, no, that's not what he's like. And so that's when I realized, like, okay, I'm going to conduct myself in a certain way, not because I care about what people say about me, but because I care about how I... What is the image I'm creating of myself to the world? Yeah. That's important to me. So what people say about me is a reflection of that. So when somebody says stuff that's not true, it's like, okay, no, I know that's not true. You know what I mean? Aren't you worried? Like, hold up. Them and their friends not liking me? Like, if I go somewhere and they look at me weird, that's too bad for them. They're wasting all that energy.
Yeah.
Because the people that I love know me and they still love me, so my heart's still good.
Oh yeah, right? That's F them haters.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, but it's at the end of the day, it's the most difficult thing to do is to not get drawn into that he said, she said battles, especially with social media, people who are like, what?
That's why I choose not to really like engage in that.
Yeah. Now there were a couple times where people were going out of their way to say things about me in such a malicious way to where it could negatively impact my life. So I reached out to them in a very discreet way, and you know, my message to them was, I know that you're saying things about me. You need to look in the mirror before you start making these accusations, and I need you to go in peace.
Yeah.
Literally, that's how I ended my message. Like, go in peace. Like, I don't want any kind of anything with you.
Yeah.
However, what you're saying and who you're talking to, it's impacting my life, and I don't like it. Go in peace, and then after that, I don't do anything. In terms of engaging, I don't engage, right? And then if it happens again, then I have to make a decision on how I'm going to address that, right? Because you can't ignore everything, right? Some things need to be addressed.
Yeah, depending on what it is, you know.
Correct. And I'm not like I train to fight MMA and everything. I'm not a fighter person. I really am training MMA because when my first daughter was about to be born, I realized I don't know how to protect my family.
Yeah.
So I learned how to fight.
Yeah.
So I can be violent, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
It's ugly.
We're getting drinks delivered to us from the number one drinker in the world. Salud.
Salud.
This was with that peach tea.
No.
Very slightly. It's like it's so beguiling because it's refreshing.
I know. So you're just like, oh, what did you put in here? You're like, what's this?
After the conversation, yeah. Oh man. Well, it's not even talk. It's already an hour.
Yeah, I think we can always like keep going on and on and on.
No, I like
of
this.
course, another session.
Yeah, whenever
Just keep going.
it's good therapy for me too to be able to discuss these things with a woman now. Even though it's like I grew up being comfortable speaking to women. Now more than ever, I need a woman's perspective on how it is that I'm trying to navigate through life now. Just as important as it is for me to get a man's perspective. So I reach out to
for both sides.
Correct.
Even for myself, I like to get a male's perspective and a female's, because men and women, the way we think.
We look at the same thing and do two different things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's
how we're designed.
Yeah, so that's the reason why, like, for me, I have guy friends, because I go to them and say, hey, from a male perspective, what do you think about this? And then my female friends, I'm like, oh, hey, what do you think about this from your standpoint?
Right.
So then you put it together, and then you're like, okay.
The truth is somewhere there in the middle.
Yeah.
The best advice is somewhere there in the middle.
Like, how can I mesh both? A middle ground.
So from the male's perspective, I'm very careful with who I ask, because I look at my
like I
give you the best advice.
Yeah, like I look at a person, like how they carry themselves,
how they manage their relationships,
and how their life, manage their whole life.
True.
How they, because I'm not gonna take advice from, say, you want to be rich. I'm not gonna take advice from someone who's poor.
Right.
It's like,
that's just a very black and white example. Now I would look at somebody
I'm gonna
who's
take advice
poor,
from someone who's,
or let's say I would look at somebody who does not know how to manage their finances, and not necessarily the advice, but the wisdom I try to get from them is, what were the mistakes that you made? That's all, right? Because for me, I believe that everybody has a certain value to them. It's being able to see it.
Yeah.
So once I was able, like you did, able to see what value I could give to those that I love and care about, and those that love and care about me, then I was able to see it in everybody else.
Yeah, and I think if you value yourself, that's where everything else starts to flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to end this conversation. Go ahead, though. What you say?
No, I was just about to say, like, when you manifest and elevate yourself, and you just respect yourself, things start to, like, open.
So you said the word manifest. So when you learn how to love and respect and value yourself, you manifest this new persona about you. Because you're like, I'm not going to let this stuff happen to me anymore. It doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
It means simply that I will recognize it and end it before it gets worse.
Yeah.
Because when you say it's not going to bother me, it's like, no, you're just lying to yourself.
Yeah, it does, but we're going to move forward.
Yeah. And then the more you do that, the less and less it will bother you.
Yeah. Awesome. It's all about mindset.
High five.